But before we get there, I want to just touch on, because we touched on fructose and glucose, artificial sweeteners, because everyone thinks, okay, so I can eat these. And I'll just tell you my own personal story. I was addicted to Splenda, and then I was told, okay, get rid of the Splenda, go to the stevia. And stevia is a good choice. But for people that are addicted to sugar and sweet, when you eat too much stevia, it can even back up the liver. So all artificial sweeteners can cause issues, but let's talk about those and their relationship to processed foods.
So everyone thinks artificial sweeteners are the answer to fructose because number one, no calories, number two, no fructose. And if that's all that was going on, that would seem right. But that's not all that's going on. There's way more than that. The epidemiologic evidence, and I just looked it up earlier today, it was in JAMA Internal Medicine 2019. First author is Hurley, H-U-R-L-E-E, or Hunley, H-U-N-L-E-E, sorry. The toxicity of one Coca-Cola equals the toxicity of 2 Diet Coca-Colas. Half as bad. Now, half as bad does not mean good. Half as bad means half as bad. Okay? Does not mean good. Now, the question is, if there's no calories and there's no fructose, why is it bad at all? And the answer is because there are other things going on. Number one, you put something sweet on the tongue. Message goes tongue to brain, sugar's coming. Message goes brain to pancreas, sugar's coming, release the insulin. But the sugar never comes because it was a diet sweetener. Turns out the pancreas still releases the insulin. We now know that. We didn't used to, but now we actually know that. And so that's driving energy into fat anyway. Remember, insulin's the energy storage hormone. So anything that tells your brain that sweet's coming is going to end up driving adiposity through this vagus nerve, the connection between the brain and the pancreas. And artificial sweeteners do not fix that problem. They actually accentuate that problem. So that's problem number one. Problem number two, work from the Weizmann Institute in Rehovot, Israel, from Elenov's lab, have shown that most of the artificial sweeteners, not all of them, but most of them, actually change the microbiome, alter the microbiome, and in the process generate this phenomenon called leaky gut, changing gut permeability and allowing for cytokines and whole bacteria to actually make it across the intestine into the bloodstream, generating systemic inflammation and glucose intolerance. Well, if you generate glucose intolerance, you're going to end up generating higher insulin as well. And then there's even a third line of reasoning based on some in vitro studies, which show that adipose tissue has receptors for some of the diet sweeteners. Now, why? I have no idea. What's the teleologic reason for that? I couldn't begin to tell you, but there it is. So the bottom line is artificial sweeteners are not the panacea that the food industry would have you believe.
Yeah.
So really what we need to do is de-sweeten our lives, not substitute.
Yeah. And, I've gone through that because I'm a type A personality, very black and white. So I had to cut all sweetener cold turkey. And it's amazing. Your taste buds come back. You just after 2 weeks of taking out that sweetness, and then you can actually taste a piece of fruit and the sweetness in it. And so this leads us into the brain and the addiction, because you do cocaine or alcohol, you have one pathway of addiction, where sugar, there's 3 separate pathways. And that's why we are all addicted to sugar, and we all have to eat every single day. That is why it's such a hard addiction to get over.
Well, it's particularly hard because the substrate never goes away, because every ultra-processed food is spiked with it on purpose. 74% of the items in the American grocery store are spiked with added sugar, not because the public wants it, but because the food industry wants it to be there to keep you consuming.
Right.
How easy do you think it would be to get off heroin if there was heroin in all the food?
I had this conversation with someone today who's struggling with their relationship with food. And I'm sitting here going, you are one of the 90% of the Americans that are struggling with their relationship with food, because processed food has hijacked our relationship with food. You
Right.
know, we have this, we constantly are thinking about it, but it's because of the sweeteners, of the fructose, and the hyper palatability, where you're combining the seed oils, the fats, the salt, and the sugar and the sweeteners all together. And it's literally like a bomb's gone off in our mouth
Right.
versus eating a sweet potato.